For something like, 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid of Giza has been this incredible monument to human ambition. But, it's also one of our biggest, most persistent mysteries. It's this total masterpiece of engineering that really just leaves us asking one simple question.
Right? How on earth did a civilization, without any modern machinery, build something on a scale that would honestly be a huge challenge for us even today? For centuries, the answer was just lost, buried under all this sand, and a ton of speculation and myth. But that's all changing. In this explainer, we're going to piece together 3 major scientific breakthroughs. Think of them like clues in a cold case that are finally giving us a clear, cohesive, and frankly absolutely brilliant picture of how the Great Pyramid was actually built. Okay, let's get into it.
So first, we have to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this thing. The Great Pyramid is made of 2.6 million cubic meters of stone. That is enough rock to build the Empire State Building more than twice.
And get this, some of the single granite beams they used way up in the King's Chamber weighed up to 75 tons. That's like the weight of about 12 adult elephants that they had to lift 60 meters up into the air.
And they did all of this in just 27 years. That's how long Pharaoh Khufu's reign was. I mean, the numbers just seem impossible. So how do you solve an impossible problem? Well, you start by solving your supply chain.
And that brings us right to our first clue, a lost river highway that, it turns out, made this whole incredible operation possible in the first place. If you go to Giza today, you see these pyramids just surrounded by miles of desert. It's almost impossible to imagine, but 4,500 years ago, this was basically prime waterfront property. The landscape was completely different, and that change is absolutely central to this whole mystery.
So, using radar that can actually see through the desert sand, scientists recently found this, the Ahramat Branch. It was a massive, 64-kilometer-long arm of the Nile that flowed right up to the base of the pyramids. And we're not talking about some little stream. This was a superhighway for moving literally millions of tons of limestone and granite.
This discovery also solves a really old puzzle. Why aren't the pyramids all just in a straight line? Turns out, the construction sites were actually following the river's changing shoreline over centuries. During Dynasty 4, the water was high, so they could build farther out into the desert. But then the water level dropped in Dynasty 5, so they had to build closer to the floodplain. The river wasn't just a highway, it was the master planner for the whole project.
Okay, so the river explains the logistics, but how can we be so sure about the timing of it all and just how intense the work was? For that, we turn to our second clue, which was hiding in the mud of that ancient harbor.
Scientists drilled these deep sediment cores from the bottom of where that old harbor used to be. And by analyzing the chemical makeup of each layer, they can literally read the history of the area like a book, year by year.
And what they found was a smoking gun. This chart shows this massive spike in copper pollution that just skyrockets precisely during the reigns of the Great Pyramid builders, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Now, why copper? Because that's what their tools were made of. Chisels, saws, drills, all being churned out on an industrial scale. So think of this chemical fingerprint less like a guess and more like a timestamp that's literally etched into the earth. It's definitive proof of a massive, metal-working industrial complex running at full steam, right there on the waterfront. It just speaks to an incredible level of centralized planning, a whole state-level operation that could organize a supply chain for metal, for fuel, and for labor, all at the same time. Okay, so we've got the materials on site, and we have a massive workforce busy making tools. But we're still left with the biggest question of all. How did they lift those 75-ton blocks? This is where our third clue comes in, and it's a brilliant piece of engineering. For decades, the whole ramp theory was a huge problem. Most of the models required a ramp so enormous, it would have been bigger than the pyramid itself. I mean, it was just physically and economically impossible. But now, a new engineering analysis has come up with a far more elegant solution.
This new theory suggests this really clever two-part system. So first, you've got a massive, straight main ramp that was used to haul the heaviest stuff more than halfway up the structure. Then for the lighter blocks of the upper levels, they switched to a much more efficient secondary ramp that actually spiraled around the outside of the pyramid.
The real genius, though, was how they handled the corners on that winding upper ramp. They used a central pivot post with these rotating wooden spars, and that let teams guide the heavy sleds around those tight 90-degree turns smoothly and efficiently. It prevented bottlenecks and just kept the whole operation moving. It's such a simple but brilliant solution to a really complex problem.
So now we have our 3 clues: a lost river, a chemical fingerprint, and an elegant engineering blueprint. Let's see how they all snap together to create this single, powerful new theory.
So let's put it all together. The Acromat branch gave them the waterway they needed to move all that stone. The copper pollution is our timestamp, proving that massive industrial workshops were running at exactly the right time. And that 2-part ramp system gave them the ingenious engineering to lift the blocks into place.
And what's so powerful here is that these pieces aren't just separate theories. They interlock perfectly. The river supplied the workshops made the tools, and the tools cut the stones that were then carried up the ramp. It all forms this single, integrated, and scientifically supported system. It's just a picture of pure ingenuity.
So the science gives us a really clear picture of how they did it, but it also reveals something deeper. A pretty profound story about the true cost and the legacy of such an incredible human achievement.
When we put all this evidence together, the pyramids become way more than just a wonder of the world. They're a testament to an almost unbelievable level of project management, of collaborative effort, and just the raw power of human determination. But that achievement came with a price tag. The same geochemical analysis that proved the timing of the construction also revealed this startling fact. The Pyramid Project created the first major human-caused metal pollution event in the region. It literally left a chemical scar on the landscape that we can still detect thousands of years later.
And this kind of brings us to a final thought. The Great Pyramid is an ancient wonder, for sure, but maybe it's also an ancient warning. It reminds us that every great human endeavor leaves its mark, for better or for worse. It really makes you wonder, what indelible legacy, visible and invisible, will our own great projects leave for the civilizations that come after us?